Wonderful. Well, welcome, Louise. The floor is yours.
Right, I'm just going to share my screen now. So hopefully you can all see the sort of pinky orangey screen. Perfect. Well, thank you, Kate, for that introduction, and thank you all very much for having me along to today's session. My name is Louise McQuillan and I am part of the team here at Texthelp. And today I'm going to be focusing on the topic of hidden disabilities, and particularly looking at the topic of neurodiversity and why workplace accommodations are more important than ever, really, and particularly when we look at the new way of working. I'm going to delve into some of the benefits of neurodiversity in your workplace, as well as a couple of best practices that we have worked with certain organisations and how they have benefited from workplace accommodations. So to give you a little bit more background, just in case anybody hasn't heard of Texthelp, we have been in operation for 24 years, I think it is now. We started out primarily in the education field, but we now provide that support into the workplace, again focusing on support for individuals with neurodiverse conditions. We started out in Antrim, which, as I'm sure you can tell by my accent, we're based over in Northern Ireland, so just outside Belfast, but we do have a global presence. So we have offices in Boston in the US and Brisbane in Australia as well. And we're continuing to grow as well. As a company, there's a couple of accolades that we're very proud of. Just before Christmas last year, actually, we were awarded Investors in People Platinum Award, and we're only one of a handful of companies, particularly in Northern Ireland, to achieve this level. But one of the key accolades for us is that we are disability confident employers. I know Helen touched on it previously, but if you're not aware of the Disability Confidence Scheme, it is a government scheme that encourages employers to think differently about disability and to take action to improve on how they recruit, retain, and obviously develop people with disabilities in their organisation. So let's sort of start to think back to the good old days when we were in the office and you would have went into your physical offices. For organisations, when you were creating those physical office spaces for staff, particularly with disabilities, you would have had to ensure that your building was fit for purpose. You would have had to ensure there was ramps, lifts, spaces around desks, even having those kind of physical things perhaps on somebody's desk. However, what were you doing to support those individuals who perhaps had hidden disabilities or neurodiverse conditions where they weren't always visible? So what I'm going to do is explore some of those areas now and what we can do to help. So first of all, what is neurodiversity? So I'm sure a lot of you have heard this term before, but for anybody who hasn't, it's a non-exhaustive list really of conditions, including dyslexia, autism, Asperger's, dyspraxia, ADHD, and other conditions, and can affect how somebody processes information, particularly in their day-to-day life. So we work with thousands of organisations across the globe in supporting staff with neurodiversities and hidden disabilities. But the key to what we do is in the research, and that suggests that there's around 1 in 7 people are neurodiverse. So if you think of your workforce, if you have 7 people, for example, in your workforce, there's at least one of those people may have a neurodiverse condition. So let's chat about some of these challenges and how team members might be facing at the minute. So probably the most common of these conditions is dyslexia. So around 10% of the population has dyslexia, around 4% severely so. We know diagnosis of dyslexia often happens after the age of 21, so many people will have developed coping mechanisms right through their education and then into the workplace. However, we know global awareness of dyslexia is increasing, and this is through increased diagnosis. And there's kind of a lot of, if you like, that celebrity awareness. A lot of celebrities are now speaking out about certain conditions. I know Holly Willoughby recently did a piece on how she uses yellow paper to read her scripts, because that helps her process the information differently. So raising that awareness piece around dyslexia has definitely helped with that awareness globally. According to the National Autistic Society as well, 70% of autistic adults say that they are not getting the help they need from social services, and 70% of autistic adults have also stated that with more support they would feel less isolated. Now, we know these reports were carried out long before COVID happened, so you may find that for individuals who may not be in work, that isolation has also been increased. Only 16% of autistic adults in the UK are in full-time paid employment, and only 32% are in some kind of paid work. So reasons for this include challenges sometimes at interview stage. They may struggle to manage the physical requirements of a workplace, or in many cases engaging with individuals on different work teams. Furthermore, only around 10% of autistic adults receive employment support, but 53% say they want to. So there's a big disparity there, which can include a number of factors. That could be the unwillingness of individuals to disclose their disability because, again, of the stigma associated, or possibly the employer is unaware of what support is actually available to provide individuals and to help them thrive. And about 1.5 million adults in the UK have ADHD, but not only, there's 120,000 are formally diagnosed, and ADHD conditions or diagnosis, for adults can take up to 7 years. So it's a long process to actually get that definition or qualification of your condition. So these types of non-apparent disabilities are more understood now than just a few years ago. And we know organisations are starting to become more aware of the variety of skills that enable neurodiverse individuals to thrive in particular roles. These can range from sales, computer programming, journalists, healthcare professionals, just to name a few. And we know organisations are growing acutely aware of the importance of ensuring work environments are welcoming to everybody, and particularly those with neurodiversity. So I think it's worth noting here that adjustments and considerations that organisations can help support neurodiverse colleagues, including more transparent recruitment processes or improved communication channels, can also benefit neurotypical staff too. So actually setting these standards in place for neurodiverse staff has a business benefit for everybody. So just want to show you quickly a quick snapshot of a map of neurodiversity. And these are some of the conditions within neurodiversity. So this image shows off the skills, talents and traits neurodivergent individuals commonly possess. Often these conditions can be looked at quite negatively, but by looking at these unique strengths, we can see how particular organisations and roles could greatly benefit from some of these strengths. In contrast, here's an image of the skills, talents and traits neurodiverse individuals commonly possess. So looking at these unique strengths, you can see how particular organisations and roles could greatly benefit from one or more of these strengths. I mean, really, what organisation doesn't want somebody who's innovative, has great communication skills, creative ability and creative thinking? These are key skills that so many organisations are now craving for. So it's key to consider these conditions as well. So as we know, at the minute, we're all experiencing a period of uncertainty and change. As remote working is now common practice and looks to set to continue for a long time, this may have been a huge adjustment for some staff and perhaps still might be difficult for them to adjust with. But as we know, remote working is set to stay. So have you considered the needs of all your staff? So for staff with neurodiverse conditions, such as what we've already discussed, the new way of working can be overwhelming. So I want to chat about just a couple of the challenges that individuals with neurodiverse conditions can face. So let's look at time management. So many neurodiverse individuals can struggle with time management. At the extreme, they can experience a condition where time is perceived as sped up or slowed down. Some may enter a zen-like state of flow where they are intently engaged and fully immersed in that activity that they're working on. And now more than ever, the boundaries between work and home life can become blurred, which can lead to stress and in many cases can lead to overworking as well. So when looking at planning and prioritising, when working remotely from your team, it's too easy to lose track of what tasks are most critical and of most business priority. People with dyspraxia can have difficulties with sequencing skills, so this could manifest as making errors when inputting data, struggling with timekeeping or planning tasks on a daily or sometimes weekly basis. And then sensory overload. So background noise, bright lights, digital distractions can be an issue in the office. And at a time, we know when some schools are closing, you may be working with other members of your family in the house, there can be a lot of different challenges to face. And again, work can often be more varied now, and sensory challenges have the potential to be more of an issue when working from home. So people with dyslexia and dyspraxia can struggle with poor working memory. And that means that anything that they struggle to keep in their attention at one time. So you can find it hard to concentrate on one or things at once. So frequent distractions, competing demands and projects and pressures from work on a number of tasks can all add to the problem. So what can we do to make it easier for your neurodiverse team members? Well, let's review some quick actions that can help. So I know some of these may have been talked about before, but it's great to sort of emphasize the importance of these. So awareness within your organization is one of the biggest things. How do you create awareness of hidden conditions? Well, one of the big things is awareness days are a great way to highlight that information. We just recently had Dyslexia Awareness Month, where within our organisation we had Wear Red Days. So we were really sort of highlighting the importance of dyslexia. And there's so many different awareness days out there. So for your organisation to be involved, to share emails, to have sort of your working groups, talk about them can be a great place to start. As well as that, if you have a diversity inclusion team, often we know there are so many different demands from a diversity inclusion team in different strands that they want to focus on. We know there's race, LGBT, gender, but even just looking and thinking what other areas could we be involved in? So trying to broaden out some of those topics. So accommodating and supporting the whole team. So speak with your staff, educate yourself on the support that's available out there. So I think Jen had touched on this, that your staff may already know the support that they need, or in some cases they might not have a clue. But what you can start to do is build a bit of a bank of knowledge and of resources that you know are out there. They may not be suitable for everybody, but at least you know that there is support there for particular needs. Because again, I think as Jen mentioned, different conditions affect people differently. So it's important to involve them in that conversation. So highlight your commitment to supporting neurodiversity. So talk about the benefits that they bring rather than always focus on the barriers that people may be facing. Helping to set routines and manage expectations and priorities. So working from home has really changed the way people work. Some people have settled in really well to a new routine and it may actually be an ideal working situation for them. But again, for others, they may crave the routine of an office. So look at options where, you know, people can work flexibly. I know certainly, again, Jen touched on this about people working different hours and working later and working that a little bit more flexible to suit them. And again, talk to your team. Find out what they need. I think one of the biggest barriers for organisations is that sometimes they're scared to ask, almost in fear of offending somebody. But just by starting the conversation, you will start to learn more and more about your staff, rather than just assuming that all your staff are fine or you know the support they need. For some organisations, they ask staff their needs at the onboarding stage and never ask again. But again, just to go back to what Jen said, her condition changed later in life. So when she maybe first started her role, she didn't need that support. But as she progressed through her role, that requirements changed. So just think about involving everybody at various stages throughout their career. But then as a quick note, there's a couple more things just to sort of provide a bit of guidance. So setting absolute finish times. So particularly when working from home, we know the sort of lines between work life and home life can get a little bit blurred, as people may tend to work a little bit longer because they don't have that commute to get home, which can often add to overworking and stress. So try and encourage your team to have those set times as well, or indeed, if they are working flexible, give themselves to have a bit of a routine. I know Jen again touched on some of these points earlier, but encouraging breaks. Again, work and life balance can get blurred. And it was always certainly in our office that we would have got together in the kitchen, had a cup of tea, even for 10-15 minutes, just to break away from the screen. But if you have a neurodiverse condition and you're constantly looking at a screen, that can add to fatigue and stress. So again, taking those short sort of breaks away from your screen can help. If you have a team that you know might be struggling with setting priorities and planning ahead, it's always great to sit down and even sort of discuss with staff what they're doing for that week or the day. I know certainly within our team, we have a morning huddle every day. It can be a get together just to catch up, but sometimes it can then be focused on this is what we need to work through for that week or that day. So having that kind of flexibility to chat can be great. And in some cases, it's just about who was watching I'm a Celebrity last night, but just having that social interaction again, particularly for people who may be living on their own or working on their own all day, that can be a really, really great help. Again, setting aside a time for video calls. Again, adding those ad hoc meetings can add a sort of layer of pressure. If I'm sure we've all got it, the dreaded, have you got 2 minutes? So for some people that can really induce stress, uncertainty, anxiety, and you don't know what's to come. So even if it's just for a few minutes to catch up, try and plan those meetings ahead and give individuals a heads up of the support or the call that's about to come. So I know that the digital way of working isn't going away. So what more can we do to support staff, particularly as we move towards this digital future? Well, this is where at Texthelp, we've tried to provide that support through our Read and Write tool. So to give you a little snapshot of our tool, Read and Write is a literacy and productivity support tool, and it's currently used by 25 million people worldwide. And what it tries to do is help staff work smarter, more efficiently and more accurately. And it particularly benefits some of those key neurodiverse areas that I talked about with dyslexia, dyspraxia, autism, ADHD and Asperger's. So at a time when so many of us have migrated to remote working practices, our tools can really help support your neurodiverse staff. And I want to run through just a couple of the key benefits. So this is a quick snapshot of our Read and Write toolbar. So our toolbar is incredibly flexible and can work with whatever platform you are using. Some of the benefits that individuals use Read and Write for is our text to speech. So rather than reading long documents on a screen, it can have the information read aloud. So if you have been looking at your screen all day, you've been asked to read a lengthy report or PDF document, our Read and Write tool can read that aloud. We have a screen masking tool, which again, if you're looking at the screen, perhaps you're in your box room in your house, the lighting's terrible or the lighting's coming in from a window or a door somewhere. Our screen masking tool can put a colour filter. So for somebody with ADHD, Mears-Erling conditions, where colour can be really beneficial for looking and processing information, you can add pictures there as well. So again, what our tools are really designed to do is to provide that sort of ease of stress for individuals. So
Louise, just to give you a 3-minute call, okay, for your
perfect.
Okay.
No problem. Well, that actually brings us on nicely to, I know I mentioned at the start I wanted to share some information about some of the organisations that we have worked with to provide support. And one in particular that we have worked with is South Yorkshire Police. So we provided our Read and Write tool to South Yorkshire Police. What they were doing is individuals were coming for assessments, and dyslexia was one of the top assessment results that were coming through from their staff. So what they currently had around 5,000, just over 5,000 staff, and that was ranging from police officers to support officers. And as I mentioned, the workplace accommodation neurodiversity was by far the largest reason. Previously, they were then providing that on a case-by-case basis, which for the organisation was beginning to incur that sort of large financial and time cost. So what they did was they came with us and asked to review licensing options and what would work best for them. So what we were then able to do is provide them with a site-wide license of Read and Write, which meant every member of staff would have access to Read and Write without having to disclose any particular needs to any other members of staff. There was one story in particular which spurred this on, which was a chief member of staff. They had been a police officer for a number of years, but they had recently been promoted to a more senior role, and they began to sort of struggle with their reading and writing, having to create larger reports. After discussions, it was confirmed that they had dyslexia, but they had developed such high coping mechanisms throughout their career that it had never really become clear until their work responsibilities changed. So what they were able to do was provide Read and Write instantly. So then instantly that member of staff had access to the support they needed to continue to fulfill their new position to the best of their ability. So it shows the importance of supporting staff, not just through the induction process, but throughout their entire career as situations can change. South Yorkshire Police also noted that from a recruitment perspective, by informing their new recruits that they had dedicated support network along freely available read and write, the recruitment team had noticed an increase in applicants declaring disability. So again, just that awareness piece and that inclusive workforce that individuals knew South Yorkshire Police were supportive of these particular conditions, which meant people felt more open to discuss
Louise,
that.
I'm afraid we're right out of time.
You know what? That's perfect because that's me at the end anyway. So there's just one slide, but as I say, I'm sure the team will be sharing slides after. But if there's any questions or any queries, obviously my details are on screen now, so feel free to reach out.
Fantastic. Again, lots of engagement. I've had a couple of comments privately, but just really enjoying, you know, I suppose the positivity that you share. You know, there's so much out there, and these solutions can be just providing the most enormous opportunity to build a better, inclusive world. So, Louise, thank you for that. We will get the slides to everybody. Again, lots of people have been asking, do we get the slides? Yes, you will. We need at least one of you working with a very noisy workman outside. So we'll make sure that you can get those slides. And of course, this is being recorded. So Louise, for the moment, thank you so much for your inputs.